Call My Bluff, a programme for the discerning viewer, chaired by the ever-young wizard of the word, Bob Holness.
Yes, our referee is that defender of fair play, and still a very handsome fellow, if he doesn't mind me saying so.
And if you believe that, you should watch Call My Bluff, 12:05 on BBC1.
Now, BBC One's bumper bundle of afternoon fun with Chris Jarvis.
Feeling down, get off the ground, turn on your TV. Wacky, funky, fun to watch, children's BBC.
Hello, welcome along. It's Friday, which means it's the start of the weekend, but it's a good weekend this weekend because it goes on a bit longer because it's Bank Holiday Monday. And we're celebrating in style with your favourite programmes. We've got Casper, we've got Monster Cafe coming up, and Playdays as well. But who's that sleeping? Felix, wake up, you're on! And bring your bottle collection as well. Here's Felix the cat.
Take me home.
I'm out there doing a few shots right now. I'm going to be in Rochdale pretty soon, doing some like electrical cars and stuff. So I'm very busy. That'll come out in September.
Do you know, everyone in Rochdale is now going, right, move house. Kids, let's go. Listen, do not miss tomorrow morning, Saturday Aardvark.
The Aardvark, I'm going to be watching it from my pillow.
Well, tomorrow, don't forget, they've got the Ozone, also Showbiz Goss with Matt the Man, Simeon's here, Kirsten's here, Sister Otis, and Stan. Oh, there's so much happening. You've got to watch it, haven't you? Good luck, we're going to race. Bye, see you tomorrow. Oh, next week.
Play around with BBC One this Saturday night. It's right on target. It's virtual reality.
Gone fishing. If nothing else, Ronnie, the sound effects are good here.
It's golf with a twist. Full Swing with Jimmy Tarbuck starts tomorrow at 5:55 on BBC One.
This is BBC One, a neighbourhood watch area.
Everybody needs good neighbours.
Unleashed over on BBC Two shortly, Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer with Shooting Stars.
You can find the perfect blend. That's when good neighbours become good friends.
Are you sure you don't want me to phone up that big Brenda?
It's Friday night and Dell sees himself as a bit of a matchmaker.
Tonight, in front of half of Peckham, the bird I told everyone was my girlfriend stood on a counter and took all her clothes off.
But these two make the perfect couple.
You think that's grey in his beard? That's not. It's Guinness froth.
Make a double date with BBC One tonight.
On Newsroom South East tonight, closing in on the road rage murderer. Police say they've had hundreds of calls. Mystery of the little girl found abandoned on a university campus. And 50 years of Heathrow. The Queen joins in the celebration. That's all at 6:30.
The 6 o'clock news now on BBC One with Martin Lewis and Jenny Bond.
The police send out a signal to football hooligans ahead of Euro 96. 19 people are arrested in a series of raids in the northeast of England. A leading Liberal reformer, Sir Thomas Bingham, is to take over as the top judge in England and Wales. The Prime Minister visits British troops in Bosnia and says he expects them to be home by the end of the year as planned. And the parents astonished that this family planning clinic gave condoms to children as young as 9. Good evening. 19 people are still being held by police tonight after a series of dawn raids across the northeast of England aimed at cracking down on football hooliganism. Detectives seized weapons, including machetes and imitation firearms. They identified suspects from security camera footage recorded during the riots which followed Newcastle United's home game against Spurs earlier this month. The police say the raid sent the strongest signal to anyone who was thinking of causing trouble during the Euro 96 championships.
Euro 96 is only 2 weeks away, and the police operation to identify soccer hooligans has an added urgency. The man inside was one of 19 arrested at first light. It was a carefully planned operation involving more than 100 officers in many parts of the northeast.
Everything that we have here clearly will be fed into the National Football Intelligence Unit. It will be of a great advantage to them to be able to pass to our colleagues in other parts of the country who are also preparing like us for Euro 96.
Those arrested in the dawn swoops had been especially targeted, identified when closed-circuit television cameras captured up to 200 people causing violence and damage after a Newcastle United match against Tottenham 3 weeks ago. Following the arrests, police displayed what they described as an awesome array of weapons found in some of the 25 homes they'd searched. The development was worrying. Most men belonged to one organisation, a militaristic group which appeared to have links with hooligan elements attached to several British soccer clubs and gangs across Europe.
It is frightening when you see the baseball bat types of weapons, guns, a whole series of knives. The kosh, that's a particular sinister weapon across there. The catapult can fire with considerable force, projectiles of considerable force. Really is the masks indicating to me the level of organisation which goes on in the background, what was traditionally called football violence.
Today's operation has focused on one club, Newcastle United. Officials have reacted strongly by saying anyone convicted as a result will be banned from the ground for life. Richard Wells, BBC News, Newcastle.
A leading reformer has been named as the new Lord Chief Justice, the most senior full-time judge in England and Wales. Sir Thomas Bingham, the current Master of the Rolls, will take over from Lord Taylor, who is retiring next month because of ill health.
Sir Thomas Bingham made his first appearance as Lord Chief at the place where he'll do his most significant work, the Royal Courts of Justice. He takes over at a time of great controversy, and he was quick to pay tribute to his predecessor, Lord Taylor.
I think that all that one can hope to do is to do one's best to build on the wonderful foundations that he's laid.
Sir Thomas's strength is his incisive mind, which has enabled him to oversee complex investigations, producing reports of great clarity. In the late 1970s, he led the inquiry into sanctions busting in what was then Rhodesia. And in the early 90s, he probed the collapse of the bank BCCI. Yesterday's remarkable sentencing debate, initiated by Lord Taylor, highlighted a rift with government. Sir Thomas Bingham's profile has been lower than his predecessor, but it's thought unlikely that he'll fight his corner any less vigorously.
There may be some change in style, but I don't think you'll find much of a change in substance. And anybody who thinks that Sir Thomas Bingham is in any way a pushover in terms of principle and policy is in for a very quick shock.
In the other key appointment, Lord Wolfe was named Master of the Rolls. A reformer, he's expected to radically improve access to the civil courts. But criminal justice will remain the chief priority for the Home Secretary.
With a new Lord Chief Justice, the tone of the dialogue with government may be less confrontational. But the gap between ministers and judges on sentencing remains alarmingly wide. John Silverman, BBC News, at the Royal Courts of Justice.
The Prime Minister has spent the day in Bosnia, where he's been meeting British troops serving with the International Peace Implementation Force. Mr Major told them they should be proud of the work they'd done in helping to rebuild Bosnia after the war. He said he hoped they'd be able to leave on schedule at the end of this year. The BBC's political editor, Robin Oakley, travelled with Mr Major.
Mr Major has battles of his own to fight these days, but he was in Bosnia to thank the 11,000 British troops who are helping to preserve the peace and reconstruct a war-torn country after 4 years of destruction. He told the men and women of the 1st Mechanised Brigade they could be proud of doing immensely well a job that desperately needed doing.
I've just been down the road talking to some of the people in the village, and if you could have heard what they said to me about the work that you have done here, I think you would have every reason to be proud.
The Prime Minister, who'd earlier been briefed on the way by General Sir Mike Walker, commander of NATO's Rapid Reaction Corps, knows that Britain is coming under pressure, along with other members of NATO's I4 Peace Implementation Force, to stay on after the December deadline, when the Americans are due to pull out. But he gave no hints on arrival about extending their role.
It's too early to make a definitive judgment, but the expectation is that they will pull out on time. That's certainly what we're working for. It's certainly what we hope will happen.
Mr. Major's first helicopter-hopping trip to Bosnia since the Dayton Peace Accord was a practical affair, designed to see how British troops were being used and British money spent.
The mission is now broadening inevitably into the support of civilian agencies, all of whom have got very particular parts of Dayton to deliver, not least economic regeneration.
In Shipovo, as the clean-up continued, he met local people recently returned to their homes. With the aid of local children, he opened a new bypass to speed up the arrival of relief supplies. There are still deep worries about whether the Peace Implementation Force's work can be finished in the time limit set, about how the old nationalist parties dominate the political scene. But Mr. Major showed his pride in the work the troops are doing, and they responded in the traditional way.
Hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray!
The aim of the British efforts here has been to demonstrate by the time of elections due in September that there are real practical benefits in peace for the people of Bosnia. But the question after that is whether the peace can be preserved without the I4 troops who are due to leave in December staying on for longer. Robin Oakley, BBC News, Sarajevo.
The Scottish National Party has called for the ban on Scottish and Northern Irish beef to be lifted. The SNP leader, Alex Salmond, said that Scotland was very close to guaranteeing the eradication of BSE because of the low numbers of infected cattle. And he attacked the government's strategy of non-cooperation with Europe as ridiculous and counterproductive.
Prime Irish and Scottish beef herds used to find ready markets and command premium prices across the world. The ban has put paid to that, even though only 5% of Britain's 160,000 BSE cases over the last 10 years have been among Scottish herds. The SNP says it's time for Scottish and Northern Irish beef producers to ask Europe to treat them separately from other British farmers, confident the ban would then be lifted.
We found there was support from other areas of the UK who see the realistic prospect of using the quality schemes from Scotland and Northern Ireland as a lever to re-enter European markets. Now that seems to me a much more attractive prospect than the phony war being conducted from the bunker in Downing Street.
But on a visit to Aberdeen, one cabinet minister rejected the proposals out of hand. A regional lifting of the ban would be divisive and counterproductive.
If you start to argue for the exemption of one particular region of the country from what is an unjustified ban, you will be then seen to be weakening the claim you're making that it is unjustified for the whole country.
The government had planned to press for the lifting of the ban on specialised herds, but only as a step-by-step strategy once restrictions on gelatin, tallow and semen had been relaxed. But like their union, farmers in Scotland want Britain's beef producers to continue to work together. They see no immediate need to treat Scottish and Irish herds separately.
At the moment, we should be addressing this problem nationally. I don't think it should be taken in a local context at the moment. That's something that will maybe develop in the future. But I would be far happier if the politicians would address the short-term problem of the amount of money that's being lost in the beef industry at the moment.
And a growing number of Scottish farmers remain to be convinced that the current non-cooperation policy with Europe is the right way forward. Andrew Castle, BBC News, Glasgow.
The government says the beef crisis will cost the British taxpayer nearly £2.5 billion by 1999. But business leaders are arguing that what they call Britain's increasingly belligerent attitude to Europe could cost even more in lost business and jobs.
As managing director of a Europe-wide haulage company, Paul Mains is alarmed at both the tactics and the rhetoric of Westminster. A routine business trip to Paris this week confirmed his fears. He believes Britain is seen as increasingly marginalised in Europe, and the strategy of disrupting EU business can only make matters worse.
The big dangers are for inward investment. So many of the new jobs that have come to the UK, and indeed so much of the exports that we carry into Europe, are coming from the new companies that are coming into the UK as a base for Europe. I'm sure that they will be put off in the future by this sort of language and will begin to look to other locations.
At a meeting with bosses of sister companies from around Europe, John Major's Get Tough stance was dismissed as a political stunt, which was unlikely to do us much good in Europe.
The Conservatives need something to unite behind, and they found something now. They couldn't find the Falkland this time, so they found the beef into Europe.
UK is one of the big exporters in the EEC, and I think UK would be certainly the one who would suffer the most.
But the idea of Britain taking on our European partners stirred some old-fashioned patriotism back at the company's base in Buckinghamshire. Though 80% of its business is in Europe and 400 jobs here depend on the European market, many of its workers believe John Major is right to adopt hostile tactics with our European partners.
I mean, the beef business is a pretty big business for Britain, so we're losing a lot of money over this. We must take a stand with this.
I think it's gone on long enough now. I think it's about time they taste their own medicine. They keep making all these different rules, not just the beef, everything. I think Europe has stopped us doing a lot of things, and it's time to put up a stand.
The government believes that by going into battle in Europe, it has struck a populist chord. But companies like this fear the long-term damage of these tactics could be far greater than the £2.4 billion which the beef crisis is expected to cost over the next 2 years. And if the government strategy does start to hit investment and jobs, any short-term political benefits could swiftly be reversed. Carol Walker, BBC News, Buckinghamshire.
The Nigerian High Commissioner in London was summoned to the Foreign Office today to be told of the government's deep concern over his country's refusal to allow a 13-year-old British boy to return home. John Paul Mokulu was freed yesterday after a month in custody. But the Nigerian authorities are still holding his passport, and he's been ordered to report to them twice a week.
Detectives investigating the murder of a man in what's being called a road rage attack have received about 1,000 calls since his fiancée appeared on the BBC's Crime Watch programme last night. Stephen Cameron was stabbed to death on the M25 in Kent last Sunday. Some callers said they recognised his killer from the photo-fit picture issued by police, but it'll take several days to follow up the information.
A man who shot dead one person and injured 16 others on Tyneside in 1989 has been sent to a secure mental unit for life. A judge at Durham Crown Court said Robert Sartin should be detained indefinitely after he pleaded not guilty by virtue of insanity. The case had been delayed until he was considered fit to plead.
During 20 minutes of insanity, Robert Sartin shot 17 people as he walked the streets in the Monk Seaton area of Whitley Bay. The man who died, Scout leader Ken McIntosh, was killed after leaving a Methodist church service. He'd been singled out at random by Sartin, who was later diagnosed as suffering from a severe mental illness. Witnesses described how, dressed in black, Sartin roamed the area shooting indiscriminately. His other victims included a passing cyclist, a woman chatting to a neighbour, and another tending her garden. Robert Wilson received 60 pellet wounds. He still suffers from them today.
He fired. I tried to avert myself, shall we say, and he hit me in the side and the back, in which case I jumped over the top of my car and ran into the house.
Robert Sartin appeared at Durham Crown Court today, 7 years on after he was finally deemed fit to plead. The judge sent him to a secure mental unit for life. Months before the shooting, Sartin had visited Hungerford, the town where Michael Ryan killed 15. A psychiatrist who treated Sartin said it wasn't surprising warning signs like that were missed.
I think it's easy in any case where some tragedy like this happens to look with hindsight at the events that have occurred over the previous year and see they were significant. At the time when these things were happening, they weren't seen as significant by anybody.
Sartin later apologised for his actions. Little comfort for those families who suffered at his hands. Clarence Mitchell, BBC News.
The time is just after 6:15. Coming up, how will they vote? The generation that grew up with the Troubles in Northern Ireland prepare for their first election.
Hitting the right note, how being taught music helps children improve their maths.
And the crisis in rugby union. Will the top clubs break away?
"20,000 voters in next week's election in Northern Ireland are unique. Born and brought up in the Troubles, they only became eligible to vote just before the IRA ceasefire broke down. Now they're being asked to decide who will represent them in the Northern Ireland Forum, which will try to negotiate a permanent peace. Our Ireland correspondent Dennis Murray reports.
In Belfast's internet cafe, most of the main parties are on the stump. You can, if you want, surf green, white and orange, red, white and blue, policies going round the world. The first-time voters at this election are very much the computer generation. In what's a very traditional society, they perhaps have fewer boundaries than their parents. They're less likely to vote along historical lines, and they want to see change that would mean they could stay in a peaceful and prosperous Northern Ireland. So many have emigrated over the last 25 years to get away from the sectarianism and the violence. Pupils at Grosvenor Grammar School in East Belfast complete their political studies A-level. But even if it wasn't a subject, because of the nature of the province, 18-year-olds here are far more politicised than their contemporaries elsewhere. This is a state school, which in Northern Ireland means that predominantly the students are Protestant. Will these young people vote as their parents did?
It's important to know what you're voting for, not just because your parents voted for some party. That's the next thing that you're naturally going to do that. But I think, people have to make out for themselves, think about why they're voting.
One of the questions in the exam was, the problem is there's no solution. Discuss.
I think one of the major problems is actually the politicians themselves. They're old. They were in the politics whenever the Troubles began 25 years ago. It was partly their problem. It was partly their fault that the problems began, and then they're trying to resolve them. What I think is really necessary is to actually get more young people into politics and let them try and sort out the problems.
But old certainties affect this generation too.
I feel if you're not going to vote as a unionist, you're effectively giving the nationalists a vote. And as the unionists are a majority in Northern Ireland, every unionist should take the opportunity to come out and vote and make themselves heard.
Just a few miles away, West Belfast and St Louisa's Catholic Girls' School. It's one of the few comprehensive type schools in Northern Ireland, and here too there was debate about ringing the changes with their first-time franchise.
I'll vote the way my parents vote because they've taught me their beliefs, and I think, well, my parents are mostly geared to peace, so I'll be voting for the party that's mostly geared to peace. I have to disagree. We're now mature and old enough to decide which party we want to vote for and what we're geared towards. Okay, some of our parents do want peace, but there's other parents, that are totally against, well, are fighting for their beliefs, if you know what I mean.
All the young people I spoke to put peace as their priority. One whose father was murdered when she was 14 summed up how they felt at the end of the IRA ceasefire.
It was just like a nightmare happening all over again, because the way I felt that there was other people who were going to have to experience what my family and thousands of other families have experienced. So it was like the past 18 months just didn't mean anything, What's the point in letting people taste what they can have and then just snapping it away from them?
Protestant, Catholic and dissenter, they all agree.
Everybody in the world has a right to peace. Why should we have to live in violence because a minority of people say, well, we don't think this is right, so we're going to bomb and kill people?
Dennis Murray, BBC News, Belfast.
Claims that condoms have been given to children as young as 9 by a family planning centre are to be investigated by health officials. The Amelia Nutt Clinic in Bristol was set up by a local GP because of the high number of teenage pregnancies in the area, but it's now facing criticism that it has been acting irresponsibly.
Look. Karen Eslick helps to run a kiddies disco when she's not looking after her friend's baby. She was shocked when she discovered that children as young as hers had been given condoms, handed out to prevent teenage pregnancies.
We had a lot of complaints from parents of younger children saying they didn't want their child to come to the disco if there was going to be things like condoms there. So we spoke to some of the children aged 10 and 11 to find out where the condoms came from.
The clinic at Withypool was set up to reduce the number of teenage pregnancies. Currently, there are more than 3,000 a year in England, and prevention was regarded as the preferred policy. But parents in the area had mixed views about the very young getting hold of condoms.
They've got to give them to the kids, yeah, to stop pregnancies in teenagers. But it's not only that, but the parents should know what they're doing anyway.
Well, I think it's a bit ridiculous that kids these days, are subjected to these sort of things, but it's a fact of life now.
Even children leaving the local school had seen condoms in the playground and in the classroom.
Yeah, a couple of my friends had them in class and blowing them up and popping them and all that.
Now the Healthcare Trust is planning to carry out its own inquiry, and today they were prepared to issue a short statement about the clinic.
There is no general policy to hand out condoms to 9-year-olds, but it is difficult to be absolutely certain the ages of the young people attending the clinic. The Family Planning Service also believes there is an education role for the service and takes that role very seriously indeed.
Despite calls for the police to investigate the Amelia Nutt Family Planning Clinic, officers said it was not illegal for young children to possess condoms. They would be taking no action. Stephen Cape, BBC News, Bristol.
27 people, most of them children, have been injured in a crash between a school bus and a lorry in Lincolnshire. The bus was travelling between Boston and Skegness near the village of Old Leek when the accident happened shortly before 9 o'clock this morning. 6 ambulances took the casualties to Pilgrim Hospital in Boston. All but 2 children have now been released after treatment.
Police believe a fire which swept through a shopping centre in Gloucester, causing millions of pounds worth of damage, may have been started deliberately. More than 100 firefighters took 7 hours to control the blaze. Their chief criticised the MFI company for not having a sprinkler system fitted in their store.
Children who learn music in school do better in other subjects, according to new research published in the science journal Nature. A study among 7-year-olds in America found that those given extra music and art lessons made greater progress in their classwork, and their behaviour improved as well.
The music they make may be fairly rudimentary, but the latest research shows lessons in music and the visual arts have an important spin-off effect. Children who spend more time on music and art subjects learn to read more easily and make faster progress in maths compared with children doing fewer music and arts lessons. The children also have a better attitude towards school and learning.
It helps with concentration. It improves children's listening skills because so many of them are used to television screens, video screens, computer games, that they're very well developed visually, but they're not very good at listening.
At Westminster Abbey Choir School, the choristers are steeped in music. Apart from singing, each chorister learns 2 musical instruments. Their teachers are in no doubt that music helps them with their academic subjects.
What a lot of people don't realise is that music, as well as being creative, is of course a disciplined activity. It focuses the mind and it develops intellectual capacity. So that boys who otherwise weren't very bright, or may have considered themselves not to be very bright when they first come here, discover by the time they leave, they're actually doing academically really rather well.
Researchers say that learning music and art skills forces what they call mental stretching, useful to other areas of learning. Though music is part of the national curriculum, some local authorities have reduced instrument teaching to save money. Music specialists believe that instead, music should be encouraged.
What can be done to improve it is very much to make more resources available in terms of better quality education for teachers and a better supply of musical instruments in schools.
According to the experts, if music is marginalised, other subjects are jeopardised. James Wilkinson, BBC News.
A former Juventus captain Gianluca Vialli will be playing for Chelsea next season. He's joined the club on a 3-year contract worth about £1 million a year. Vialli will be 32 in July, but is still highly rated by the new Chelsea manager Ruud Gullit. The announcement comes just 2 days after he led Juventus to victory in the European Cup against Ajax in Rome.
England's first Texaco Trophy match against India was called off after rain washed out play at the Oval. There were constant showers throughout the day, and by late afternoon the umpires declared the game a no result because India failed to bat for 25 overs.
The English Rugby Football Union has been holding an all-day emergency meeting with the country's top clubs to try to stop them breaking away. The leading 20 clubs want more involvement in the running of the game, now that it's turned professional.
Morning. For the first time, all 61 members of the RFU's committee were summoned to try and end the deadlock, stopping the sport moving into the professional era. The top clubs, who have to meet hefty wage bills for their players, want more control of their level of the game than the RFU is prepared to give them. and the dispute has taken on a nasty personal undertone around the chairman of the RFU's executive committee, Cliff Brittle, elected to represent the grassroots, but accused by the clubs of blocking progress.
I think that's certainly been the case with one or two, or perhaps even just one of the negotiating team, that they found it very difficult to see there's any authority at all.
With England risking expulsion from the Five Nations Championship over their demand for a bigger share of the TV money, rugby union has become a shambles in which everybody could lose. Neil Bennett, BBC News.
And Neil Bennett joins me now from outside the meeting. Neil, they're taking a long time about it. Are they going to sort it out?
Well, it looks as though they are, yes. We haven't quite seen the puff of white smoke yet, but it does seem as though everybody has come to their senses, and they are going to reach agreement. They've been talking about details all day. We're told that the full committee of the RFU are happy with what the clubs told them, but it's now up to the smaller negotiating body. But bearing in mind that this is the group with which there's been so much trouble up till now, it's not cut and dusted, but nearly so.
And how severe are the repercussions of this split within the rugby union fraternity likely to be?
Well, it would be very severe indeed. If the clubs broke away, it would mean that the top players might not be available to play for England. And when you also bear in mind that the RFU have somehow contrived to open up a war on two fronts, they still risk being thrown out of the Five Nations Championship because they're asking for more money from the television deal. And if that goes ahead, and if the clubs do break away, then the RFU is not going to have much left to administer. But it certainly looks as though there might be agreement on the clubs dispute.
Neil, stay dry. Thanks very much indeed.
And some late news. Prison officers are tonight threatening a work to rule. They say they're concerned that as many as 3,000 jobs could be lost over the next 3 years and that there could be some compulsory redundancies. Prison officers are barred by law from taking industrial action.
And the main news again tonight. The police have sent out a signal to football hooligans ahead of Euro 96. 19 people are still being held after a series of dawn raids in the northeast of England. The next national news is, of course, the 9 o'clock news. Have a relaxing weekend.
But from Martin and from me, good evening.
Good evening.
A very good evening to you. It's going to stay rather cool and rather unsettled through this coming weekend, I'm afraid. We've already got a fair amount of rain sitting on the radar maps just at the moment. You can see that down in the south. It's taking its time to clear away, and also a lot of showers up in northern areas too. And if we get in a little bit closer, you can see where the heaviest of the showers are. They are around the Aberdeen area at the moment, coming in towards Glasgow, coming in towards Belfast too. Dry weather in between, but a lot of rain down through East Anglia, down through Cambridge, and particularly heavy rain coming across in south of Oxford, at least rather more persistent rain, in towards the London area. That's going to take a while to clear, and it stretches right the way down through into parts of the West Country. It's going to take a time to clear the southeast, probably in the early hours of the morning, then many places ending up dry, I think, although there will be some showers coming along that western coast. A coldish night could be down as low as 4 in the West Midlands. That means a touch of ground frost now and again. Well, that's what the weather map's going to look like as we go through into Saturday, and these weather fronts are going to try desperately to come in across the country through the weekend, really getting into southern parts more than anything else. So a dry, bright start in many places, I think, tomorrow. The best of the sunshine along the eastern side of England, but we're going to find a cloud thickening up down in southern counties. It may give a few spots of rain, chiefly along the coastal fringes, certainly. Once we get to the northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, that's where we're going to see the showers developing. Not as heavy, not as frequent as they have been today. And top temperature tomorrow was 1763 Fahrenheit, I think, across in towards East Anglia. And then as we go into Sunday morning, some showers in the north. We're going to find outbreaks of rain spreading northwards. Not too sure how far it's going to go north yet, but I would suggest Wales up through towards Manchester, across in towards the Wash. We're going to have that rain around in the south on Monday morning. That'll be clearing away. Then most of us on Monday brightening up, most of us seeing some sunshine. That's it from me. Bye for now.
This week on 999. A cyclist is pinned to the ground under a 38-ton lorry with only a forklift truck to free her. An experimental airship powered by hot air crashes into a treetop, but the branches are not strong enough to bear its weight. And a scuba diver is sucked underwater into the propellers of a boat. 999, tonight at 9:30 on BBC1.
There's one animal even David Attenborough can't stand. They've turned our sewer systems into their own subterranean empire. And life's a picnic, thanks to our wasteful habits. They've adapted themselves to live in our world, and our paths cross more than we realise. What's more, they're too clever by half. Wildlife on One gives grudging respect to the rat. Tuesday at 8 on BBC1.
And David Attenborough explores the life of the rat in the new Radio Times, together with complete listings for all television and major satellite channels. See the answers, then hear the questions and avoid being wiped out with Paul Daniels in half an hour. The day's news from the South East now on BBC One with Gwennon Edwards and Sharon Doughty.
The M25 road rage murder. Police say the net is closing in on the killer.
The toddler abandoned on a university campus. Police appeal for her parents to come forward.
And from a row of tents to the world's biggest international airport, the Queen helps Heathrow celebrate 50 years. Good evening. First tonight, detectives believe the net is closing around the man wanted for the road rage murder on the M25 in Kent. The incident room has received more than 1,000 calls, and police have the names of several men they'd like to interview. The latest developments followed an appeal by the dead man's fiancée on the BBC's Crime Watch programme. Brian Milligan reports.
Good morning, Newsroom, WDC Summary.
Detectives on the inquiry received more than 400 calls immediately after the programme, and by this morning it was well over 1,000. Amongst the piles of information, details of 18,000 owners of L registration discoveries, one of which was driven by the killer. More significantly, police now have the names of several men they'd like to question.
Yeah, we've had several people, some police officers ringing in and offering us a name to the possible suspect. And we've had also calls from different informants who name the same person, so clearly they'll receive some priority.
It's now 5 days since Stephen Cameron was murdered at junction 3 of the M25. Police are likely to be keen on progress while the memories of witnesses remain fresh. They're convinced the photo-fit picture of the killer is a good likeness. The massive public response last night came after a BBC Crime Watch programme on which Stephen's fiancée Danielle made a further appeal for help.
Just phone, you don't have to give a name, just tell us who it is.
Detectives doubt whether that appeal will carry any weight with the man responsible, but they're delighted and overwhelmed with the response they've had from others. They say they have an idea of the man's identity, and they soon hope to be knocking on his door.
Brian Milligan reporting there. Up to 50 families in Oxford may have to be rehoused after soil tests revealed high levels of contamination in their gardens. Mercury was found to be 120 times the usual levels, and traces of lead were 8 times higher. Residents claim their health has been put at risk. Jackie Bartley reports.
This 17-year-old has lived in Bertie Place all his life. As a child, he played in his garden and ate the vegetables grown by his parents.
I'm pretty mad because I've played in the soil, I've had my hands in it. When I was a baby, I probably ate some of the soil. I mean, it could have poisoned me or anything.
Next door, Sue Worrell has brought her children up on her homegrown produce. She now fears for their health.
I'm frightened to even eat it, you know, and I said, well, you just don't know what's going on. I mean, nobody has told us anything, it's just come out of the blue.
Before these houses were built in 1933, this land was used as a rubbish tip. But scientists say that's not the cause of the contamination. It's believed that topsoil brought in from elsewhere is to blame.
The contamination was discovered when a random soil test was carried out by environmental health officers. One soil sample had traces of mercury 120 times above the usual levels. Lead was 8 times higher than usual, and there were double the levels of arsenic.
All this poison that's in the ground, what's happening about it? And where do we stand?
This morning, housing officers were confronted by angry residents.
Well, we just want to know where we stand with it.
Where you stand.
And how long it's going to carry on for.
Where you stand.
It does sound quite a worrying situation for residents then, doesn't it?
Well, I think it's unsettling, clearly, to think that the land that these houses have been on for the last 60 years is contaminated. But as I say, the advice from the Director of Public Health is that the area is safe to live and play on, given certain precautions. Clearly, as a council, we want to improve the condition of the soil, and that's what we need to get on with.
Council health officials say the soil must be removed and residents rehoused until the work's complete.
They are above the standard.